Hello and welcome to the Posture Dojo podcast. My name is Sam Miller. I'm your host, and I'm taking you on a postural transformation journey, sharing some of the stories from my own postural transformation, healing and correcting an 85-degree kyphoscoliosis, and speaking with experts from a wide variety of fields, some more expected and some more surprising. Today, I'm very excited to have Amanda from PranaFlo on the podcast. And we're going to be, starting with and maybe ending with breath, but we'll see where we go in the middle. Amanda, please introduce yourself and what you do and what your practice is about.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Sam, for having me. Very excited to be here on the podcast. I'm Amanda. I'm a certified Breathwork, Pranayama, and meditation instructor. So I typically teach techniques from the Pranayama realm, which is an ancient yogic practice from India, and it's over 5,000 years old. And so I really focus on helping people manage their stress, fatigue, burnout, any emotions like anxiety, panic attacks. So that's really what I focus on, is using the power of breath to help manage those emotions.
Beautiful. So the breath is a fundamental part of a lot of the postural transformation stuff that I'm doing. In particular, the rotational angular breathing derived from the shrug method, which is essentially using the breath to expand the collapsed side of the ribcage that you'll find in a scoliosis, where you'll have a curve and a collapse on one side. You're basically using the breath to breathe sideways and backwards in the ribcage to basically de-rotate the scoliosis. So that's a really part of the breath, a really important, aspect of the breath that I love to get involved in. And the other part is in the unraveling. And it's becoming more and more obvious that a lot of these postural deformations that can happen are being caused by tension in the nervous system, and therefore the spinal cord, restricting the full alignment and growth of the spinal column and causing that warping effect. So if we have a deep trauma or a deep tension chronically throughout our developmental years as a teenager, we might start seeing a restriction in the spinal column and seeing that warping because there's no room for it to grow, and the nervous system, the spinal cord, is contracted. And certainly in my own case, I'm realizing the power of tapping into the nervous system, releasing, relaxing, and allowing that space to return. It's not really doing anything extra. It's really returning to this state of peace, of fullness, and the alignment happens, right? Without trying and forcing. It's kind of coming back to it. So I just wanted to give you a bit of context to kind of where I'm kind of integrating breath into some of the practices and techniques that I'm doing. I think you have amazing content online. You're obviously passing down a lot of wisdom around breath. And a quote that stuck out to me that you passed on: the mind is the king of the body, and the breath is the king of the mind.
Yes. BKSE Iyengar, a yoga guru, said that. And it's so true, because especially nowadays with so many distractions, we end up in this mental chatter where the mind is constantly giving us thoughts, distracting us, not allowing us to really come back to that place of peace and calm. And so by wrangling the mind through breath, it can instantly put us back into that calm nervous system state, so that the body can do its natural healing, as you mentioned. So very, very powerful. Definitely a way to ground you. So just really focusing on the breath and taking, a few deep breaths in and really focusing on how it flows in through the body and out through the body can already put your mind in the present moment. And from there, all the worries about the future or the past just disappears, and you are really in that present state. So in that sense, it's very, very powerful.
Is there a particular breath that you like to anchor yourself to? Maybe we're going into a podcast, maybe you catch you're getting ahead of yourself, or you're a little tense. Is there something that you always go back to kind of clean the slate? Maybe you could show us?
Yeah, definitely. There is a technique. It's a very grounding technique, and one of the foundational techniques of breathwork or pranayama. And usually I start beginners on this because it's just simply connecting to all the parts of our breathing system. So here so that you can see. But essentially what it is, it's breathing into our 3 parts of our breathing system. So first, our belly, so breathing into the belly, so the belly expands, moving the breath up to the ribs, up to the chest, holding for about 2 to 4 seconds, and then breathing slowly out again from the chest, ribs, and belly. So from breathing into the belly, we engage our diaphragm, which is the main muscle of our breathing system. And from there, when we move the breath up all the way up to the crown of our head and then back down, it helps us just ground ourselves into our body, letting our body know that it's safe and that we are ready to experience something new or just calmly go through the challenges that the day might bring. So that's a simple exercise. It's called 3-step full yogic breathing. Really just full body breathing is what it is.
Beautiful.
Something simple as that can already help ground you.
Yes, it just did for me. I think it's great. It kind of cleaned the slate. I'm good to go
Right,
now.
exactly.
What perspective about breath is being passed on through these yogic kind of ways of thinking? Like what do we not understand today that they've been attempting to kind of pass through generations to kind of ways of thinking? Like what do we not understand today that they've been attempting to kind of pass through generations to us?
That's a very good question. I think we can see this in a lot of ancient traditions, is how they used the breath to tap into the body's natural healing process. And I'm sure you see that a lot with your own personal journey, and I'm sure with the people that you work with. I think we have gotten so far removed from our natural body in some sense in the modern world and our society that we don't even trust that our own body can do the healing. And I think a lot of these yogic practices aim to show you that if you connect to the breath every day, not only will you improve your physical health, but also your mental and emotional well-being. So it really connects our body and mind together so that we can enter that state that we are always in, or should always be in, that state of pure consciousness, this love, this acceptance, this, we get tangled up in the mind and its chatter, but that's not who we are. We are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. At the core of our being is this essence of truth, of love, and of wisdom. And so I think the yogic lifestyle definitely helps you align and balance your inner being. And just to add to that, really you discover that everything is already within you, and you don't need to find all these outside things to bring you back to yourself and your healing capabilities that's already there.
Truly, we have these innate healing abilities, and I believe the breath is kind of one of those core tools in your toolkit to
Yeah.
master, to kind of start tapping into this ability. We have a medical system which, at least when I went through it in regards to the kyphoscoliosis, it was very physically based. So you'll be identified that there's a curve growing. You'll be sent for an X-ray. They're analyzing the angle of the curve. Then they're referring you to a specialized orthopedic surgeon who's deciding whether they're going to do surgery or not, which is sometimes removing a vertebrae, sometimes installing rods and then affixing the vertebrae beyond it. And you'll either be eligible for surgery or not, or choose to do surgery or not. And if not, like you're living with this condition, and we're not really given too many other tools to work with. At the same time, we've realized that there's this thing called the placebo effect, and it's if our mind believes that we're receiving medication, that it actually triggers this innate healing ability in our body to heal ourselves. So these kind of things have been going on, and I'm optimistic. I do see that it is trending to be the whole medical system is becoming a bit more psychosomatic, as in the psyche and the somatic being the body. The mind and that body connection seems to be more understood and more appreciated. I think it's just because there's so much evidence now out there supporting this that it's impossible to ignore.
Yeah, definitely. The mind is so powerful. Definitely has that effect on our physical well-being. I mean, if you just look at the days where you feel icky or this emotion like anger takes over you, for example, or anxiety, you see what it does to the body. Anxiety, for example, it speeds up our heart rate. It makes us nervous. It makes us sweaty, and you could already see that connection. And so when you tap into the mind through breath, it's a bit easier to control the mind in a sense, because you're having that connection.
And when we're talking about the mind, I really want to, especially for the context of this conversation, I want to include the spinal cord and the nervous system as the mind. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of fair to do that, right? The brain has a spinal cord, a noodle-like kind of stem coming through the center of the spine and then expanding into the nervous system, which is also connected into a fascia, that connective tissue, which is more of that web, which is holding our structure. And this seems to me like as I'm diving deeper and deeper and going layer into this postural thing, I'm like, why was this not part of the conversation? Why were they looking at just the physical bone structure and not looking at the thing sending the instructions to the entire structure? It's just like, what happened there? There's clearly been...
they often separate.
Yeah, and it is very, very specialized and different things, but it is changing, and we've kind of forgotten a lot. So I appreciate people like you who are opening themselves to the wisdom of the past as far back as we can go, the things that we've been doing for generations that have stuck. And they've stuck because there's value to them.
Right, exactly. And nowadays, I think it's more important than ever to see the body as a whole. So just like you've said, how your spine is connected to your nervous system, every aspect impacts different parts of your body, different parts of your brain. And when we see our body as a whole, that's when we can start understanding ourselves more, and with awareness, we can bring that healing to just live better lives, live healthier lives.
Yeah, so stress, anxiety, and especially chronic stress and chronic anxiety, meaning over long periods of time, is probably one of the biggest afflictions on our society today, right? Even if you look at by mortality, by death, the heart disease is quite up there, but I'm sure a lot of the heart disease is coming from people eating in a way to ease their stress. The stress is at the core of so much going on how do you, someone, well, first of all, there's a lot of people who might be dealing with this who could benefit from your help, but they don't know that the breath might be the cure to their stress.
Right.
So how do you, let's say someone does realize, okay, the breath is something that I can do, or let's speak to that person who isn't aware of the breath. Let's go back.
Right.
Someone's highly stressed, they're anxious, they're trying to do stuff, they're intending to do something in their life, they're in tension, they have intentions. And that intention of their mind is causing intentions all over their body. How would, let's say you had the opportunity to work with someone like that, where do you begin with that person?
Yeah, definitely. So usually people that are in that chronic stress state, their nervous system is constantly in the fight or flight, which is our survival mode, and it has trouble shifting into our parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes greater calm and relaxation. And when the body can't get into that calmer state, that's when we start seeing our organs fail, right? Our body isn't functioning at its best. And so the first step is really to feel safe in your body, feel safe in your nervous system. And by doing that, we work with slower breathing techniques where you become aware of really your breath. You befriend your breath, I like to say. And in this stage, we take you on this journey of, hey, letting your nervous system, letting your body know that it's safe. It's safe to experience that peace and calm. And from there, it takes a slow process, right? Like we are all onions, layer by layer, peeling off the things that may be limiting us, like stress. And once the body knows that it's safe, once the nervous system knows that it's safe, after time, we can get into the root cause of our stress. And from there, you start noticing and healing your responses to stress. So all these emotions that are within you, you start to be able to build this resilience in your nervous system to handle those stressful situations that life may throw at you. But it all starts with first bringing awareness into the body, and then from there, you work more with different techniques, you start to peel off the layers, and you get to the root cause.
So there's a couple different ways to kind of come at this, right? Because yes, it's from the outside world, but it's also us. Like, I want to achieve things. I want to go out and do things. So I'm choosing, I'm inviting stress in, right? And if I'm productive and I'm looking to achieve things, I'm naturally going to be in this state. Am I looking to, well, I guess I kind of want to answer and then ask your perspective on it. I guess my approach is, one, mentally reducing the stress as kind of like a defensive strategy, like so allowing and perceiving it as less stressful. These things are to be expected. They're not big world-destroying consequences. They're all things that are going to be managed and worked out. So that's kind of the first filter of stress for me, is lowering the intake of it by perceiving it as less grave, less dramatic. I'm then, through the breath, I'm reducing the frequency of my breath, so I'm slowing my breath. I mean, I know about 10 breaths per minute is what we want to aim for, or 6 breaths per minute, 10 seconds for pure inhale, exhale. That's kind of a benchmark, right? 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out is kind of a good thing where we kind of want to be at.
Yes.
So I'm doing
perfect
that.
Balance.
And then from there, I guess I'm working on increasing my stress threshold. And so that's when it's things like the ice baths, or I'm doing exercise, I'm putting myself in these stressful situations and practicing my calmness in those exercises, in those positions. And that's even in these corrective exercises, Before, I was really about tension and kind of pushing it. Now I'm really about, I'm going to be as relaxed as possible as I'm doing this maneuver. So that's kind of, I guess, my stress management. Is there something you would kind of add to that, or how would you approach that?
Right. Exactly. So first, again, with the calming techniques, letting your body know that it's safe. And then from there, we can work on that resilience that you're talking about. So like ice baths, like exercise, like some of the stronger breathing techniques, what it does is it tones our nervous system so that we can take on more of those challenging situations. So like you said, like with exercise, we put ourselves in that short stress response, a voluntary stress response, and that's how we build that resilience. So once we are in that calm state, we let the body know, okay, it's safe. We don't want to shock the body right away, right? Because then we start to resist the practices, or maybe we don't feel like it works for us. It's too much for our nervous system at the time. But from there, once it's safe, we can start building on our resilience, both emotionally and physically. So I love that method. That's exactly how our nervous system also likes to work.
Right. It's more of an on-the-go kind of strategy. I've found that even in my own life, and a lot of people are probably going to struggle with stopping for a moment and doing nothing and relaxing and kind of, okay, let's calm the nervous system before we go out and kind of crank and get going. Right?
Right. And that's because, like, just the world that we live in nowadays, it's so fast. Our baseline is already very fast that when we try to slow down, we actually don't feel safe. This feels weird and unknown to us because our common state of nervous system is going, going, going. So it's hard to shift into that state in the beginning. But over time, with consistent practice, as we can start working with our nervous system and shift those states within us.
Let's say you've got a busy day coming up, a lot of stuff going on. You've got a podcast to show up to. Maybe you've got some content to make. You've got some classes. How do you prepare what's your kind of routine to get optimized for that?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for asking. That sounds like my day today, actually. Well, I first start with grounding myself in rituals. So every morning I work with yoga. I do my yoga routine. So exercises first. And that helps release tension in the body and in the mind so that I'm able to sit in a meditative state. And so once yoga is done, I sit down, I practice these pranayama breathing exercises, and I get into meditation. And doing that every day really gives me this sense of mental clarity, also that groundedness, as well as just puts me in that calm state so that whatever the day may bring, I'm already able to consciously respond versus impulsively react. Like I'm already in my body, I feel embodied, I feel good in myself, that I can handle whatever comes my way. So those are the 3 key practices that I do before I start a day full of activities, and it helps me go through them for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's remembering these things is sometimes easier than doing things. And I learned this from another therapist who was like, getting someone to do something is much harder than getting someone to remember something. Is there something that you would suggest that we remember about our breath in our days?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I first want to start with this quote from an amazing book called Breath by James Nestor that says, "There are as many ways to breathe as there are foods to eat, and each way we breathe will affect the body in different ways." So different emotions will maybe inflict different ways of breathing. So if you just bring your awareness to your breath throughout the day, you can already manipulate how you feel. So for example, if you feel stressed or if you feel anxious throughout your day, notice how you're breathing. Maybe it's faster, maybe it's a bit shorter and shallow, only in the top part of your chest. And if you manipulate your breath and really control it and start taking deep breaths in through the nose and then exhaling longer than inhaling, do that for about 9 times, right? It takes a few breaths to really shift your state. But do that and then notice how you feel. Your breath has the power to shift how you feel instantly, really just within a few minutes. So anchoring yourself in the breath can do so much for you and really empower you to go through your days with ease and grace.
You have a peaceful joyfulness in your presence, in your energy. I can tell the things that you're preaching are what you're practicing, and it's paying off.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You've said a few times about feeling safe in your body, and I'd like to go into that a little deeper. And I'll speak from my personal experience, kind of understanding this, because I guess when I wasn't at that layer of my onion yet, I was kind of like, yeah, I feel safe, I'm good. As I go deeper into these onions, and for me that's been, I've had, with an 85-degree curve in my thoracic, my hips formed a natural brace over the years. There was an incident when I was about 13 in a river where one leg was caught in a rope in the down current and my other leg was kind of jarred this way, so it kind of created quite a bit of trauma, quite physically, in my hips and pelvis. And it's been something that kind of cemented in place for a number of years when I was just kind of ignoring the posture thing as it formed. And then as I've been going deeper into healing it, I've been restoring range of motion, restoring freedom of movement in those areas. And I've got pretty good mobility now, but I can keep going deeper and deeper. I get to these deeper levels where I'm like, wow, I've got more to let go. I get through one layer and then I get to another layer, and it's like, okay, this is a new experience, a new awareness that I'm coming into now. And I just recently, this is like about a week ago, had a session where I was going into some deep kind of hip mobility stuff with a therapist, and I felt called, like, using this kind of stuff that we're talking about. It's kind of like, I was saying confío, and that's because I was in Mexico, so I was speaking in Spanish, but I was like, that is, I trust. And as I was saying that, I was able to let go and go deeper and allow this range of motion where I was feeling that kind of that painful restriction. I was just saying, I trust, and I could go deeper and deeper. And I believe because that traumatic experience of having that body kind of being torn apart, it went into this reactive, chronic, tense state, and it imprinted or branded in the system, and especially in that area of tissue, to protect itself, to hold on. And so I have to say, no, we're good, but I have to do this. This is like 20 years later, after the experience, I'm still kind of going in and reprogramming, re-educating through the mind, and I guess carrying that thought from the mind with the breath and the nervous system to that area.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we hold on to all of our life experiences. So things that happen to us as a child, all of our cells have that memory and intelligence, and it usually is formed as of energy, right? So emotion is energy in motion. And some of those things can get really deep in us that it takes time to really peel off those layers and get to exactly what you were experiencing, that tension that you feel. And a lot of it is accepting that it's there and then surrendering to it. And with working with the breath, right, in yoga, for example, in pranayama, prana means life force energy. It is the vital force that permeates the universe, that animates all living beings. And when we move that energy into those spaces of tension and really trust that with the mind and focusing that energy on there, then you can start to slowly release and surrender your body, no longer holding on to those emotions that may have been at the root of that traumatic experience. So for example, like fear gets really stuck in our psoas, in our hips, our lower back, and that can be from experiences years back. So really working with that whole energy system through our breath is very powerful.
And how we imagine that breath, I feel, is something that isn't talked about as much. I mean, every practitioner, every breathwork practitioner, every yoga teacher will describe, imagine your breath going through, imagine the light, imagine. This is really important, the way we imagine, because that's essentially the way we program the breath. It's the way we're tapping into this placebo effect. If we have enough understanding that, okay, the mental state that I'm transferring through my nervous system to different parts of my body, the more precisely we can imagine, the more precisely we can send that information through our body to relax, to create peace, to create safety, to create trust in those areas, the more effective it will be. Which is something that's why aren't we taught this?
Yeah, definitely. I think I feel science is catching up to how powerful visualizations can be. In my sessions, I always like to tell people, you're not just breathing air, you are breathing this life energy. Imagine it healing every part of your being and really using that as a tool, because it goes far beyond our intellect. We have not just the physical body, right, but our energetic system. And we're only learning about that now. So, well, I guess they knew, right? Ancient years ago, 5,000 years ago, they knew. And there's this revitalization of all this knowledge finally coming out again. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's the technical knowledge, which is great, but it's not the only way, because you can imagine it as a story, as light beams traveling through your body. I mean, the story can differ, but it's the actual act of doing it that matters. And you can kind of label it, and if you have to put in words, it's a different form itself. Ultimately, it's going to be you and your internal imagination.
Yeah, definitely. You are manipulating your energy. You are in control of the mind. You can direct its energy to different areas of the body to really help you in this life, honestly.
Sometimes I enjoy, in those moments of deep transformation, is throwing the perspective beyond the physical self to the space in between the physical. And just that step of going beyond the body into this space, which technically we also have more of than actual physical matter, can be very freeing. And that perspective in the mind is then transferred throughout your nervous system.
Yeah. Definitely.
So
definitely. Of course, it starts first with the physical. And then once you transcend the physical, you can really deep dive into what else is within us. What else do I feel? Your awareness becomes sharper. You start to feel those subtle energies moving through your arms, your whole body. And that already is very powerful.
So I'm familiar with like holotropic breath work, which can sometimes be with drumming, and you're sometimes you're doing like a belly chest exhale, belly chest exhale over 30-40 minutes, and that can get you into profound levels in your mind and your body. In pranayama, is there a practice that goes into that arena? Maybe if someone wants to go deeper, are there particular practices you would recommend?
Yeah, definitely. So pranayama has a wide range of breathing techniques, and a lot of the modern techniques you see today, such as holotropic breathing or even the Wim Hof method, all evolved from pranayama. So pranayama has something very similar called strong yogic breathing. And it is believed in yoga that it's best to breathe in and out of the nose as best as you can. And so it's that same strong, full breathing that helps you release those tensions, those emotions, so that you can really connect to that core essence, that altered state of consciousness, as some people may describe it. But yes, there's some strong techniques. There are also gentle and calming techniques that help balance your body, help balance your nervous system, your energy systems. So there's a wide range of different techniques. And by going through it in a systematic way and really working with your body and, all these, what pranayama does is it doesn't just shock the body into, okay, altered states. Sometimes we're not ready for that, especially if you've had different conditions before, if you've experienced panic attacks. It may cause just an emotional too much for you, I would say. And so going through it at a nice pace as a journey, right, of peeling the layers, I like to say, is what pranayama helps you do. So there's not one technique that necessarily is very, very strong that can doing it for 40, 50 minutes at a time. If you're not ready for that, like if your lung capacity is not ready for that, it can maybe do more harm than good. And so you really got to be your own inner guide as well, like your body best if you've pushed past your limits or if you've forced something. Some people are not ready for breath holds. So it's like really starting first at a level that you are comfortable at, and then slowly adding these stronger techniques so that your nervous system can handle it. And then from there, adding more techniques.
Is it so? It's building a collection of them and knowing, depending on the awareness of your own state, which one to bring to the forefront.
Right. Yeah, we usually can categorize them as the strong techniques and the gentle, calming techniques. So,
is there a favorite one at the moment that you're going deeper into?
Yeah, definitely. One that I like to start with, and one of my favorite ones, is called Nadi Shodhana, or Anulom Vilom, alternate nostril breathing. And in this technique, you breathe in through the left nostril, out the right, and then in through the right nostril and out the left. And what this does is it helps balance both sides of our body and brain. So something that's very interesting is that when we breathe through our left nostril, it activates the right side of our brain. So creativity, intuition, inner wisdom. And when we breathe from our right nostril, it activates our left brain, which is for logic, reasoning, science, math. And usually throughout the day, the dominance switches. So sometimes we are in our right dominant stage and you can feel the air is much clearer in your right nostril. And other times when we're engaged in calmer practices, the left nostril is flowing more freely. And so what this technique does is it helps balance those two sides so that we have greater mental clarity, focus, and presence. So that's one that I am constantly using. I practice that one every day, and that just helps with get you into that balanced state of harmony, really.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I heard about that, and I started kind of being aware of which nostril was more active, especially because part of my posture, I have a bit more of a deviated septum on the left. And then it also happens to be that because of the kyphoscoliosis, my left rib cage is a bit more compressed. So I'm breathing less through my left nostril and left side of the rib cage. So as I'm reinflating that rib cage, I actually find it quite helpful to cover the right nostril and start kind of directing the breath by using the nostril. And that became a really powerful instrument, adding to that rotational breathing that we're getting on, essentially restoring the neural pathways to breathe, to restore restore my ideal kind of breathing patterns, which can get shut off as they're compressed in these types of curves. So that alternate nostril breathing is especially important for people who are looking to restore those pathways as well.
Yeah, definitely. And even like for your case, for example, if you notice that the left side may be not as flowing freely, you can also just do that left nostril breathing where you close the right and you breathe in through the left, out the right, or in and out of the left. So again, redirecting that energy, that prana, to those areas that may need it more is what we can do to help get us back into that balanced state.
Yeah, you've mentioned like one of the core kind of philosophies that I go by in this practice, and that is becoming aware of listening to those weaknesses and paying attention to them. Like those are your North Star. If you're seeing an imbalance, whether it's in your breathing or in your movement, or if you're seeing a weakness, or if you're seeing a restriction in your movement or in your flow, then that's where you pay attention to. It's less effective to go to the gym and train what you're already good at. Go to the gym and identify what you're not as good at, which nostril you're not breathing in as much, which side is weaker, which range of motion you're having restriction in. That's your direction. That's the thing to focus on. And as you were saying, I guess it's distributing this prana, distributing this life force energy that we can direct and guide and encourage this flow to restore flow ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. And honestly, these weaknesses are blessings because they force you to stop, to look at yourself honestly and accept your situation, but also know that it can change. You can change. And by focusing on those things that need improvement, that's only going to help you live the life that you truly want to live.
And I think it's really helpful when you see this tangible progression, right? And I feel like that's one of the bigger things that people struggle to get consistent about with breath work, is that it's not as visible. Is there something that you do or something you're aware of that does have this tangible difference? Because I think that's why the ice bath trend got super popular online, because it's really visible, right? You go in and look, I'm controlling my breath, and it's this tangible progression, this tangible skill, which is getting this tangible result. And I feel like breath work is, that your breathwork is still like the ultimate skill that you're practicing there, but it's not as visible, so it's not as like sexy for social media, perhaps. Is there a tangible kind of way that somebody can understand and build that belief and understanding that breath is that real king of the mind and of the body?
Yeah, definitely. I think with breathwork, you see the instant effects, But again, when like the actual physical transformations may take time. And also I see in the people that I work with, emotions come maybe a month later. That traumatic experience, all of a sudden they're reminded of it. But it takes that time. And so I would say a helpful practice to add to your mindfulness breathwork routine is journaling. I think reflection is the most important thing, because not only are you aware of those improvements that you may need, but also your achievements, your accomplishments to help you keep going. So a lot of the breathing techniques, they do help over time physically, as you are very much aware of. And every day it can be something small, but when we reflect on that and we take time to just notice what it actually did to us, you'll see that it actually has a huge impact on your life. But without that reflection, without that awareness, you may not see the difference at all, right? So adding that journaling practice either after the session or after your day can already help you stay consistent with the practice.
I like that. That's a tangible way to reflect on the feeling, which is the first and the largest and the most important result and benefit of that practice, right? So you're putting it onto paper there. I guess I would add if you're on the Posture Dojo and you're listening to this pod and you're looking for how breath can be a part of your postural transformation journey, I would suggest an extra exhale. It's something that I do before the castle breath meditation, which is essentially rebuilding this castle of 7 colored pillars throughout the body. A exhale to levels that we very rarely give ourselves the time to exhale to. I found that when people are holding a lot of tension in their postures, we're holding and we're tensing and we're trying to stand up, and whenever we're trying to do something, that means there's something in tension. So that exhale, that complete letting go, I would suggest doing that at home, in whether it's by yourself or not, because it's often when we're in social situations, we're trying to not show our bad posture or anything, so we're always trying. So find a quiet, private place, give yourself a few breaths to reset, and then go into a full exhale. And I want you to exhale to places that you haven't exhaled to before, to lengthen that, to draw that out. And then perhaps even a small inhale and another exhale. And go deeper and give yourself 3 exhales and go as deeply as you can to truly, truly let go. And I'm sure you will feel physical, kind of tangible results and benefits that come from this. And after your 3 exhales, then you can, like the breath you shared at the beginning of this episode, from the belly to the chest, to the upper extremities, top of the head, you can rebuild yourself and allow your physical body to take shape on top of the breath. You are probably more space than you are physical, so allow yourself to imagine that for a breath and experience the power of the breath.
Yes, I love that, because the power is in the exhalation. It's really about letting go, and we often hold all that tension in, environmental, external, and in pranayama, we also, before we start a breathing technique, we start off with an exhalation to reset the body, empty out the lungs of any stagnant energy, and then focusing on the exhale. Very powerful. I love that.
Beautiful. So if someone wants to go deeper into this practice, how do you work with people and where can they find you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I work online, so I work with a lot of different people. Currently, I do have an online course that really takes you on this journey, as I mentioned, learning different breathing techniques different ways to use the breath to help you on your journey of physical, emotional, and mental transformation. So that's a 5-week self-paced course, lifetime access, and you can find that on my website, PranaFlo.com, and you can also work with me directly with private sessions, either online or in person as well.
Great. And who is this for? Who's that person that you're ready to help?
Yeah, I'm helping anybody that really just feels stressed, anxious, and doesn't know where to turn. They are having overactive thoughts. They don't know how to wrangle the power of their mind. It's too restless. And they're seeing that it's affecting the rest of their life. So someone who's ready to make that transformation and be done with it for all, ready to come back into your power and ready to harness the mind to benefit you so that you can go through life and go through its challenges with, again, greater ease and grace.
Beautiful. To become the king of the mind through the breath.
Yes, king of the mind, gets you back into that state of inner peace.
Amazing.
From there, we can do anything.
All right. Well, thank you, Amanda. It's very clear that you're very good at what you do. You can see it in your presence. The results are emanating through your energy. So thank you for doing what you're doing and showing up and offering your guidance to the world. I know many people are going to benefit from it.
Thank you so much, Sam. This was honestly a beautiful conversation. I'm super glad we got to connect. And yes, I'm hoping we both can just help spread more of the power of this breath.
There we go.
So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Put this one on your favorites. Listen to it again. I think we've shared some incredible knowledge and things that I think have been passed down to us and through us, and I think can be implemented in real effective ways. We talked about some big ideas, and I think the more that those ideas sink in and become a part of your imagination, the more you can harness the innate healing ability that you have. So thank you for listening. Thank yourself for listening. We'll see you in the next one.